This is the 100X podcast. We are talking about another game that is coming to Web3 right now. We've got Nicholas Niter Schrick talking about RavenQuest. Welcome, man. Introduce the game that you guys have built that is launching 2 days from this recording.
Yes, very soon. As mentioned, I'm Nicholas Schrick, aka Niter. I'm the founder and game director at Tavern Light Games. Tavern Light Games is a fully docked studio with a 10-year history of making games, and the studio behind RavenQuest. RavenQuest is an upcoming pixel-based MMORPG experience built upon a proven Web 2 success, RavenDawn. RavenQuest includes full blockchain integration built upon a fork of RavenDawn, our fully self-published MMORPG with over 220,000 monthly active users. This was achieved primarily through word of mouth, as we had a launch marketing budget of under $10,000 for RavenDawn, which released in January of this year. RavenDawn only released in the North American region. We didn't release on Steam or Epic Games. We fully self-published. So we're very proud of the numbers we hit. We feel at the end of the day, a good game speaks for itself, and we feel like we made a very good game.
Sweet, man. Under $10,000 marketing budget is a crazy statement, because I definitely know a bunch of creators that charge more than that for
a single activation.
That's crazy. Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Let me tell you about our friends at games.gg. And when I say friends, I really do mean that they are friends of 100X. Their CEO, Omar, was one of my first introductions to Web3 gaming, and we're OG holders of their Gamers Lobby collection. We love these guys. They're essentially the super app of Web3 gaming. One of the cool things they've cooked up is a gaming quest system. You complete free quests for cool games, anything from retweeting a post to beating a mission in a new game, and then you get rewards, tokens, skins, whitelist access, all kinds of things. Currently, they have active missions for Goat Gaming, Captain Laserhawk, and Space Mavericks. Go slam those quests for free at games.gg right now. Let's talk about Reactor, a proof-of-work blockchain that introduces a brand new economic model, DePIN mining software, a gaming distribution platform, the RKR token, and their game, Minions of Steel, that's proving their thesis by seamlessly integrating proof-of-work token mining with gaming. Through allowing players to mine with their own GPU while playing, not only do they essentially make gaming free, they make software free, and they present an AI-proof income for everyone. If you want to take a glimpse into the future and get there early, explore Reactor's ecosystem at the link below. You guys, you hit something there. Before we get into the gameplay itself, I do want to address, I think from my perspective right now, so when you're live, you're the only game maybe mainstream Web3 game, if that's an oxymoron, mainstream Web3 game that has a playable variant that is regular Web 2, no blockchain integrations, and then the full Web3 experience. I know of one other that's coming in the future, but I think right now you guys are the first ones to test that model. Why did you go with that model, having two games at the same time?
For sure. So I think it'll be a more common model in the near future. We've already seen, massive studios like Square Enix preparing to go down this route, and it makes a ton of sense for a lot of reasons. One of the most important, I think, is establishing the game itself, proving that it is a good game first and foremost, which I think is desperately needed in the Web3 space. I think having that foundation showing, hey, you can have hundreds of thousands of players that want to play this game without earning, bodes really well for it and really shares what you're bringing to the market. On top of that, with MMORPGs, the in-game economy is incredibly important. That ties in really with Web3 and ecosystems and making sure they're sound, and having that opportunity to really battle test it with hundreds of thousands of users is really important. Because when a MMORPG launches, those kind of economy issues and things are incredibly important, but they're even more important in the Web3 side. So having that opportunity to also battle test that. The reason why we are moving into the Web3 space with RavenQuest is really built around, we feel that Web3 truly solves the problem for MMORPGs. With that, it is third-party markets. Anyone who's played an MMO knows within a day of an MMO releasing, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of services, gold-selling sites, all that baked around it. And Web3 actually allows providing a safe and controlled ecosystem. Being completely candid, it is really the only game genre that we feel has a perfect fit for Web3. It's not to say that people aren't exploring ways to make a good fit, but it's really one of the few where we feel it's not just a buzzword or a marketing phrase. It really does provide a solution solution for the developers. So it's something that to us, it was a no-brainer moving in this space. And with that, we come to this space with a very long history as a studio, fully doxed, and knowing how to make a good title first and foremost.
Go ahead,
I
Cesar.
want to ask you a little bit about this sort of relationship between RavenDawn and RavenQuest. For someone that's played RavenDawn, what can they expect coming into this new title that you guys are building? Is it the same game, just now in Web3? Is it a building on top of the story? What does the lore look like there between the two games?
Yeah, so there's definitely some differences in the two titles, primarily in how land behaves in the game, but also just the ecosystem around it. When it comes to a Web 2 game, usually like any outside ecosystem stuff, you're aggressively banning and removing from the game. However, we've seen in a lot of Web 2 MMORPGs that they kind of like this pseudo Web 3 approach with the WoW token, RuneScape bonds, Albion Gold. Virtually every MMO has a system like this. We just want to bring this in a completely safe and controlled manner that actually allows ownership over it as well. So with that, some people are resistant to those kind of things. Some people love them. We wanted to really separate that to provide those two options for players. If they want that asset ownership, they want to be able to earn a bit when playing a game, and they want to be a part of that ecosystem. RavenQuest is great for them. If they just want nothing to do with that, RavenDawn is a great solution for that.
I have not heard, so I'm going to ask a question, and I'll preface by saying this is not a dig at you guys specifically. I've not heard anyone say anything about you guys with this, but I have heard in like various Twitter spaces, people reference the idea of like going like 1 foot into Web 3 and 1 foot into Web 2. Like maybe the reason is these developers just don't have enough conviction in the the longevity or the success of Web 3. How would you tackle? Because to me, that's going to be the main critique you guys face from Web 3.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fair. I mean, I think once you take even a single inch or foot into Web3, you're already pretty convicted on Web3. Otherwise, you wouldn't, because it definitely, to the Web2 audience, can at times really hurt your brand. I think if you're going to move into the Web3 space, you need to be convicted about it and excited about it and understand the risks that come with that and want to move through that regardless. And that really is us on it. We've been involved on the Web3 side for quite some time, but this is our first title we're bringing to it. We've loved the space. We think it truly does solve us a problem. And with that, as more big studios move into the space, Square Enix was a big announcement obviously around that. And now Sony moving in, I think that's going to become much more normalized, but right now it is a risk. Yeah. And in the end of the day, I think any good studio understands diversification. We're a decent sized studio. We're still definitely indie, but we have over 60 full-time staff. So for us, we want to have multiple titles and we want to be doing multiple things and continue to build those. The beautiful part about having a forked project is we can still put 90% of our effort into building up the same foundation of the game, because everything that's developed for either one goes for both, right? So it's pretty incredible because you're able to have kind of these two revenue streams and really build the foundation of both projects together, which allows, double the content, double the work on it. And so, I think in the end of the day, there is some level of conviction you have to take just even stepping in the space. But at the same time, I think any decent sized studio, once they get to certain sizes, they want to be involved in multiple things, just like Riot with different genres of games now, right. World of Warcraft, I think that's really important.
As far as player base on RavenDawn, how many people are playing RavenDawn right now? And do you think a portion of those are going to transfer into RavenQuest?
Yeah, so I haven't actually gotten the most recent numbers. With our expansion, though, we did hit over 200,000 users. We just released an expansion on RavenDawn back on August 9th, so quite recently here. And with that, though, we have a very large South American community on RavenDawn. About 40% of our player base is South American, mostly Brazil. We are fully localized in Portuguese, and so that's a huge part of that. In Brazil, Web3 is very normalized, much more so than North America and Europe. And so I know for a lot of them, they look at moving over to RavenQuest because a lot of them have been waiting for RavenQuest since we announced it. Because, for them, it's a no-brainer. I love the game. Why not play the game and also get the cherry on top, right? The other things that come with that, with asset ownership and earning potential. And also those third-party markets are much more normalized in Brazil as well than they are in North America and Europe. So I think that's a big part of it for us. But in the end of the day, as mentioned, we only released RavenDawn in North America. While we have a big South American user base, there is no server down there or anything like that. With RavenQuest, we will be releasing global servers. So that'll be a big part of it. We see us capturing a huge new market, especially with Southeast Asia. But there'll definitely be people that move over. Really, the way that we see it is RavenQuest we feel that it solves a lot of issues that MMO developers have, especially with fighting third-party markets. And this is a great way that we can solve that and kind of capture that. And so for us, it's a great solution, and it's something that we are really excited about. But at the same time, we want to make sure that RavenDawn is there and actively developed for people who just aren't interested in that just yet. We see the tides shifting on that, though.
Totally. And I have to agree with you. I think more and more studios are starting to see that maybe having a version of their game that's already in Web 2 have Web3 capabilities is going to be the move. I know MapleStory is also doing the same thing with MapleStory U and what they're building on Avalanche. And I think it does make sense. The MMO, like you said, is a perfect fit for the blockchain capabilities that it can have. But with that in mind, the other thing that we've seen is that there is a big influx of MMOs. There's like an MMO for every kind of person out there. What makes RavenDawn and RavenQuest stand out in this very competitive genre that is MMOs that you think will give it some success?
Yeah, so I think a big part of our success was kind of going back to our roots on how MMOs were made. So for most of the studio, we've been playing MMOs since we're young. Myself, since I was 7, I played my first MMO, and so I've been playing them most of my life.
What was the first one?
The first one I ever played was Tibia. And that was very strange in Canada. There's very few, but one of my friends introduced me to it. That was the first MMO I ever played. And so, yeah, dating real far back there, but I've played almost every MMORPG. I love the genre. It's 90% of my gaming time. And really with that, we wanted to bring back what we felt made MMORPGs great back then, which really was just how immersive the worlds were. And that wasn't because of having, a $80 million animation budget, making it incredibly flashy. It was the worlds just felt alive. They felt like they had their own purpose, that they were there with or without you. And I think that's really important. And so when we were designing RavenQuest, a big thing for us was making sure that a very system deep game. So one of the beautiful parts about working in pixel art and a top-down style is, you can have more of your studio dedicated to system design, game design, engineering, and solving those issues. And so the thing that we really think sets us apart, and we think why RavenDawn ended up growing so quickly and getting so much traction despite a microcosm marketing budget, was really because the game just offers so many fun and enjoyable gameplay loops. A big thing we talk about is we want to be able to connect all types of gaming enthusiasts, whether casual, hardcore. And the biggest way we do that is the systems in the game. Really, any way in the game you can progress. So if you want to be, run your land, be a gatherer, be a crafter, be a merchant, you can progress in the game in any of those ways, in the same way that everyone wants to progress. So like your overall level, stuff like that, virtually everything in the game provides experience and different equipment progression. But then on top of that, if you want to be a hardcore grinder, you want to focus on quests, we allow all those options. And I think that's one of the important parts that has kind of been missed in modern MMOs is they've taken that approach and be like, okay, from the first 10 hours, you're going to go through this kind of tutorial story quest line. Then you'll have another 10 hours of grinding this. Then you do 10 hours of grinding dungeons. Then you do some raids. And now you're kind of done that experience. We wanted to completely change that, where it's like you progress how you want, you find your part of the world. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way that you approach the world sounds unique. I think you mentioned that you guys are pixel art and you're top down. And to you, those are benefits. I think there is an argument to be made that specifically in Web3, there is that might be the most saturated. Those two pieces.
Funny enough,
in the mode, maybe that's a little bit less saturated in Web3 because, like you said, it allows you to work on the other pieces of the puzzle there. And especially if you're a smaller studio in Web3, what does that core gameplay look like for you guys? If I'm going to go raid a dungeon or if I'm going to go fight with my friends, how does the combat work? I
think the biggest thing is within a few hours of playing the game, I think you'll see how much depth there is to the game, how many systems are to get completely lost in. We followed a very similar design to Black Desert Online, where we want you to be able to unlock a certain part of the game and reach a certain piece of the game and progress and see 5 other things that you want to do now because they correlate so well with it. So that's a huge part of our design, is making sure that there's always new interesting paths to go down. You mentioned several other games there. I think I can confidently say that the amount of depth and content that we have to offer is second to none right now. We are bringing a multi-thousand-hour project to people, and that's not just filled with boring gameplay loops. That's filled with endless progression throughout the game. One of the biggest staples that we really focused on throughout the development of RavenQuest was virtually endless player customization. You know, we're a classless system, classless game system. So you have 8 archetypes in the game. You combine 3 of those archetypes to create like a pseudo class. With those archetypes, they all have their own trees. So you pick different skills, different passives. From there, there's 200 Raven cards that further customize all those skills. So you really do have that endless customization for your character and playing exactly what you want to play. And then on top of that, there's different weapon types you can use. They can be used with any type of archetype you're using. So that was really a huge focus on us, is we want you to be able to play your character your way, find your part of the world, whether that is running land, being, you know, the number 1 crafter on the server. We do have a skill-based crafting system as well, so you can really stand out with that. If you want to be a guy that just grinds hardcore, if you want to be a guy that focuses on PvP, ocean PvP, we have a full ocean system. You can make pirate ships, merchant ships, fishing ships. So really just a focus on deep customization.
That is really awesome, because from what I hear, I think people are going to be really shocked on the 29th with how much content you guys have available from day one.
Maybe the most content on a launch day.
Oh, yes. We're very confident on that. Like our biggest thing is the reason why it's 100% free to play on the 29th and we're not requiring anything to play is because we just want to show people what we're bringing to the space, and we think that will speak for itself. We're very confident in what we're bringing.
Yeah, you guys have a very interesting approach, because not a lot of games have months with another similar title, with your Web 2 title, to show you that, hey, we have a loop that is actually sticky. You're able to prove that with the 200,000 players that you guys were able to get on RavenDawn. Not only that, but I've played a lot of these other MMO RPGs that have been releasing on Web3, and the one thing that they do lack is depth in terms of how much content you have. It's a CBT, it's a closed beta test. They have 2-3 hours worth of content that they have to prepare for you to make sure that it works. From the sounds of this is a game that people are going to be able to try and actually get lost and just play from the get-go, because you guys already have all this content from all the months that you've had to work with RavenDawn. What are you most excited for in your transition to Web3 that you think is the reason why you guys are moving to Web3? What are the problems that you think the blockchain and Web3 is actually going to be able to solve that you currently couldn't do with RavenDawn?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is third-party markets. So with RavenDawn, the day before we launched, we had over 1,000 mentions on gold sites and forums, just using like mention tracker when I say that. With gold sites, forums offering, you know, already not offering the currency yet, but saying, oh, we'll be selling it and here are our price points and all that kind of stuff, or offering different boosting services, stuff like that. And in the end of the day, these are things that are very tough to combat. There's lots of things you can do in game, but it's really a very tricky thing to deal with, even when you're dedicating a lot of resources to it. And it's also a really sad thing too. Almost every time someone gets hacked, it's them messaging us, and within a few messages we discover, you know, oh, they were on a certain gold site and the site said, hey, you won't get tracked or banned if you let us log in directly to your account, and then 5 minutes later all their stuff is gone. And so providing an actual safe ecosystem around this, we think is very powerful, and something that, again, we think Web3 really brings to MMORPGs.
And another big thing that I've heard other people talk about when it comes to MMORPGs is that specific thing, the in-game economies. I mean, I used to play a lot of New World when it first came out, and within 2 days, those economies were broken by any means necessary, where the fact that they had to just start brand new servers and say, hey, we messed up, we have to start a brand new server, let's start again and see if we can fix those issues. When you bring in Web3 and bring in actual live economies with monetary value in it, you really can't pull those reins back once you actually press live. How are you planning to sort of ensure that the in-game economy doesn't get broken to the fact that it actually hurts you, not only your in-game economy, but your real ecosystem economy within RavenQuest?
Yeah, like really what you're saying is just the stakes are so much higher in Web3, right? And we've seen it with Web2 games where the economy gets damaged. And an MMORPG lives and dies with its economy. The amount of MMOs that I quit once the economy was completely ruined or the in-game currency had no value left, it really puts a dampen on things. So a big part of that is kind of twofold for us. One, it's one of the biggest reasons that us having a battle-tested game coming from RavenDawn is so important, because it allowed us to go through those problems and solve those issues early on. But then additionally with that, one of the tools that we actually use that was very powerful on RavenDawn for locating any economy issues and solving them immediately was supersetting all our data. So every single time any currency in the game or any item is generated, it is logged. It creates massive amounts of data. We have multiple servers just to store all this data, and we have to constantly purge it and stuff. But it is incredibly powerful. So if there's an issue or something, it right away gets flagged and detected, and we're able to locate exactly where that currency came from, where it went to, and we're able to remove it if something comes up wrong. Thankfully, we only had maybe 1 or 2 issues in RavenDawn with the ecosystem, and we were very quickly able to solve them. But having those kind of solutions prepared, I feel like every MMORPG should be tracking those kind of things or really any multiplayer game should be tracking those kind of things. It is a lot of work. It was a lot of time to set up. And again, it's not a cheap process, a lot of data to store, but incredibly important.
Awesome. Another thing that really caught my attention, especially when I clicked on you guys' profile on Twitter, is the tagline of free to play and earn MMORPG. I think free to play, a lot of people can really understand and get behind, and it's been proven to work. But free to play and earn, I think, is a new sort of format that you guys are trying to approach, because not only are people able to play for free, but actually able to earn through those mechanics in the in-game economy. What does RavenQuest monetization model look like, and how is it helped by Web3?
Yeah, so our biggest thing is we're trying to monetize in kind of a proven model, very similar to how Web2 MMORPGs have monetized. Right now, we do have a monthly optional membership that we do. We also have in-game cosmetics and a few other things. And then most importantly, our token, like a WoW token or Albion Gold, is tethered with in-game currency, which we think is really important for not only just a simple earning model, but also providing a true way to onboard Web2 users into the ecosystem as well. A lot of Web3 games talk about how they want to onboard Web2 users, and it's like, okay, that's great. And then the first thing they throw at them is sign up for a wallet. And they're like, okay, I don't want this. I don't know what this is. I'm going to not play this game, right? There's too many games out there. And so for us, it's important to make sure that they don't need to sign up with a wallet. They can just sign up and play the game like any other game. And then from there, we kind of look to convert them over to a wallet. But at the same time, there's also projects who take that approach. But then the token ecosystem and the ecosystem around the game doesn't benefit from that, because these are just players in the game now. They're not providing anything to the ecosystem or burning up anything from it. And so for us, being able to actually have Web2 users engage with the in-game auction house, purchasing these tokens and burning them up on things without ever needing a wallet is really the way we're approaching things. So we want to make sure that those Web2 users not only get onboarded and hopefully down the road get converted to Web3 users, but they're actually able to benefit the Web3 ecosystem by just being a Web2 player.
Yeah, that makes sense. As far as like using, so that's how you guys are monetizing. If I was looking at, I think this is probably less popular in the West, but you've specifically hit on the point that you guys are really popular in Latin America and you're pushing for Southeast Asia. I think one of the huge draws for any games in this space that are dominating over there is how much the player themselves earn. I look at like pretty much anyone on Ronin, for example, a huge portion of their player base is playing because, hey, dude, the couple of bucks I can make playing every hour
goes a long way,
is actually substantial with where those players are living. If I'm playing like a 4-hour play session after I get off work, I've dialed it in, I've optimized the play session. Is there a metric yet for like what earning actually looks like as a player?
Yeah, I think this is like really dangerous to share. Like, this is how much you're going to earn. I think in the end of the day,
I'm not trapping you.
No, of course, no. I totally understand. It's been asked before. You're not the first. I think what's important is, in the end of the day, if you're playing a game you love, if you can earn a little bit of money and buy lunch or in some places livable wage, that's incredible. If you're playing a game you love, if you're playing a game you don't love, then you're only going to be looking to maximize the amount you can earn.
Number. Yeah,
exactly. You only chase after the higher number, and I think that's one of the biggest flaws and really downward spirals for a lot of Web3 games. Is the game itself is like fine, but it's not like there's other things they would rather be playing with their free time. And so what happens is the game has to pump bigger rewards because they need to make sure they have the highest rewards out of all the other Web3 games. And it's not sustainable. They can only do that for so long. They tank the token price, and what they're left with is really nothing. A community that's gone, a token that's worth nothing, and the team has no reason to continue development for the game. We're an MMORPG. We want to be here for many, many years to come, continuing to add content and development. So we're constantly looking at how do we make sure that things are sustainable. I think when you look at it, though, like a fun game will drive demand in the sense that look at how many gold farmers and boosting services and stuff there are in games like World of Warcraft, right? These are groups that are also from some countries where it goes a long way, and they're farming gold because of that specifically, instead of playing, for example, some Web3 games, right? And it's because there's the demand for it, and there's an audience that wants it because they want to play the game. And so I think that's first and foremost what's important. I think it's kind of been flipped on its head, where people looked more at like, how do we make the biggest amount of rewards, which are unsustainable, and they know that, to capture an audience, versus what if we just make a really fun game that people want to play that actually has a demand for the token in the game. So for example, if you're playing a game you don't really enjoy, you're not going to spend a single dollar unless it's so you can make $2 from that dollar, right?
Right.
But if you have a game that you love, like, I mean, how many people buy Fortnite skins? How many people have a WoW subscription, right?
Way too much money than I want to admit.
Exactly, right? And so if you're playing a game you love, you're much more interested in actually burning up part of that token, as opposed to just only burning up token if you can get twice as much out. And you see Web3 projects are like, oh, we added a new burning mechanism, but the new burning mechanism is actually just going to produce more 2 weeks later. And so really they're actually just continuing to inflate and deflate the price. And so, we really see, like, in the end of the day, if you bring a strong game that people want to spend money on, that really can counterbalance the earning.
Yeah, well said. Go ahead, Caesar.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking on the whole idea of like, oh, new burning mechanism, sometimes they even make it more complicated, saying, hey, this burning mechanism is going to give you a brand new token, but then it just leads to a whole more IOUs.
Yeah,
and
exactly. And then it's just like now another layer to it, and then another layer, and it's just, again, it's a downward spiral. It's impossible to keep up with.
With that idea of ensuring
kicking the can down the road, yeah,
exactly. With that idea of ensuring that things don't get too complex in the same game economy, because you already talked a little bit about how you're planning on converting a lot of these Web2 gamers that maybe don't need to necessarily understand all the Web3 aspects of it from the get-go, but will be learning it as they get incentivized, like, hey, I want to start trading inside the game. So now they're incentivized to actually learn some of this. How will your in-game economy work with tokens itself? You guys have multiple tokens. You guys have that plan. Will NFTs be part of it? What aspects of RavenQuest will actually be Web3 related?
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing, is we want to have a very simple and intuitive model there. And that's why we are using that WoW token model, where the token is tethered to the in-game currency, allowing for a very seamless experience for Web2 users that they're very used to, because virtually every big MMORPG has that mechanic now in the game. But the added benefit is that token is actually on-chain as well, or possible to be on-chain. And so that's a really important part for us. And then from there, the token is used in the most common ways that you would see, obtaining cosmetics, our membership, as mentioned. But then on top of that, we have some like quality of life stuff, like stash tabs from PoEs, where it auto sorts items that come into your inventory, things like that. So just having a very gentle model that's very palatable for players, but then at the same time very intuitive, something that they already understand and know from other very successful Web2 games.
Are any of those other items you just listed going to be on chain, like those cosmetic items or items that you might loot, or the membership, or anything at all?
Yeah, 100%. So our approach that we want to take is we want to, a lot of projects, they push more on chain than they definitely need to. Many times it's a volume play, because they're either getting a kickback or they get like a grant where it's like volume tier and they get unlocks of cash. While we, we're with Immutable and they did offer us something like that, this can just make the process super muddy for a user. It can cause, constant fees on different things. It can just add a lot of bloat, also a lot of confusion for Web2 users. So everything in the game is available in game, but then we will also add the option to mint it if you want to take it out, to have that ownership. So it's really up to the user. If they're like, oh, I'm happy to just exchange it in game, and that's awesome, and I can exchange it through a marketplace for the token and stuff like that easily. But if they're like, hey, I want to have this like on chain, then they have that option too, but they're not forced into that constantly.
Yeah, I mean, we've even seen games say like every step that you take within the game is blockchain activity. And
every time I cringe every time I hear it. I'm like, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
For it. There might be. But
there's some incentives for it. Yeah. Yeah. In the end of the day, the user is the one that pays for that. And that's why we're taking a different approach. I think many times they try and brand it like why it's a good thing, as like, information is stored. So like that. You can do that through a database. We do that through Superset and store everything. You don't need to make the user pay constant transaction fees and wait on things and bloat and confusion to experience that.
Another big thing that you've mentioned a couple of times that now I want to sort of dial in on is that sort of idea of blockchain helping solve some of those third-party problems that happen with just Web2 MMORPGs. With are you guys planning to allowing those things like the gold selling, like people farming the specific things in order to not have other gamers? Like for me, if I want to start with an MMORPG, maybe I want to get a little boost of gold and I want to spend $10 to get 1,000,000 gold to just start my journey and get a little quick start to my gameplay. Are you actually going to harbor that in game, or is this your Web3 mechanisms meant to sort of deter people from doing that, or you're just gonna like fall into it like, hey, it's gonna happen whether we like it or not, so let's make it a safer way to actually done?
Well, so that's exactly how we see it. It is going to happen whether you like it or not as a studio. I can tell you, we put in insane resources into fighting it on RavenDawn, and there's always a group out there that will find a way to do it more efficiently and cheaper for you and outman you. And that's something we learned the hard way, seeing photos of 50 people in a studio in certain countries in the world. It feels weird to name the countries, but you know, getting those is almost like taunting photos, right? Of like, hey, this is how much manpower we're dedicating to getting around what you guys are doing. And so we really see Web3 as providing a safe alternative to that. And again, and same idea with really a WoW token, as you mentioned it. Like, you know, when I play every expansion, I always buy a few extra WoW tokens because I'm not going to go out there grinding gold. But for another player, that means their subscription is paid for, which is awesome, right? You kind of have both those benefits. And so that's really what we're looking to do, but also provide it in a safe and controlled way through Web3.
Yeah, that makes sense completely. Democratize it, decentralize it.
Exactly. Democratize it is the best way.
Just you guys, or just whatever dominant third party battler is trying to game the system. It is open to everybody.
Well, that's the incredibly frustrating part about Web 2 is because, like, in the end of the day, like, you catch a lot of people, but there's still always going to be some people you don't catch. And the frustrating part is it makes other people feel like, okay, if I'm not cheating, I'm not going to be able to compete with the person that is cheating. And then what happens is then that person's like, okay, well, I guess I'll cheat. And then they get like permanently banned. And now they feel even worse because not only did they cheat, but they felt kind of forced into cheating. Yeah. And this is an issue that many Web 2 games have. Yeah, man.
One of my, back in the day, one of my drill sergeants told me, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I felt like that's a really bad philosophy. And I watched him get dishonorably discharged. So don't be that guy.
It's a bad philosophy, but it works until it doesn't, right? Yeah. And many people, you see them as it's working until it doesn't. And you're like, oh man, I guess I should do it as well. And then, you know, sometimes you miss what happens in the long run. So
yeah, exactly. You get bit eventually. Man, I'm excited. You guys have 2 days till go time.
Yes,
early access
it is very busy.
Is opening on the 29th. And then you guys are launching a play to airdrop campaign with the Quest token. Talk to me about those two things. If I just listen to this conversation, I'm excited. That's obviously the first place I go is to play the game and the airdrop. So what do I need to know about those two things?
Yeah, so our early access really is to get awareness about the project. You know, it is an incredibly polished game already, thousands of hours of content, as mentioned. I can guarantee you will get absolutely lost in this world and how much there is to do, especially after a couple hours of playing. And so with that is available on the 29th. It is completely free. We're not trying to FOMO anybody and having to buy anything. You can hop in and play right away. You just go to RavenQuest.com. You can download it. You can join our Discord and our Twitter from there. We're doing a bunch of like really fun giveaways and community events. We're also doing a stream every single day leading up to the release and probably after. And then with that, again, we are doing it as really an awareness push. So we are also doing a 10 million Quest token airdrop as part of the early access. There's a bunch of different ways that you can get this Quest token. Most are just passively the gold for the airdrop. We're doing like a leaderboard system to make sure it gets into real players' hands. But there's lots of different ways to obtain gold. The biggest way is just it comes passively while playing by completing different achievements in the game. These aren't like chores or anything you have to do.
One of those achievements.
So literally get level 5, get blacksmithing to level 20, things like that. Virtually every main gameplay loop in the game, you'll notice will have achievements tied instead of like weird chores that aren't really fun to do. We just want you to play the game and get the gold.
Play the airdrop campaign.
Exactly.
Like, dude, I would literally never do that thing if it wasn't in this, and you want me to do it 500 times?
Yeah, exactly. So for us, like, we just want you to play the game and be like, oh, sweet, I got more leaderboard points from playing the game. Cool. But on top of that, we also have a pretty big PvP tournament that we'll be doing as well. We'll be doing a few of those through the early access. We'll be sharing those in the Discord, and also a PvE tournament, which would be kind of like Mythic first in WoW, where the team to clear bosses the fastest on the hardest difficulty will get a quest token reward pool as well. So really, like 29th, you can just hop in, play, see if it's something you want. We're very big internally with our philosophy of like play first, spend after. Like we want people to play the game, see if they like it, and then if you want to be a bigger part of the ecosystem, you can get involved down the road. But right now, we're not selling anything. Of course, we will in the future. So if you're, play the game, you love it, get involved in that, and we'd love to have you.
How long does that initial quest campaign last?
Yeah, for sure. So the early access right now, we have 2 dates announced. We have the 29th of August until September 7th, and then it'll be down until September 20th and back up until September 30th. We will have another phase after that. Right now, we're just looking at when we want to integrate certain things and where that makes the most sense. But this will essentially be the final test phase before the global release for RavenQuest.
Sweet. Epic, man. Go ahead, Caesar.
Smaller question here, because you guys already have a lot of this built out, will any of this progress that people do in the early test transfer to the main release, or is it just like they're just playing right now, leveling as high as they can, and then they're going to start fresh again when global launches?
So a big part of it, of course, the airdrop will. So that's obviously a really important part of it for a lot of people. They're like, oh, sweet. Like when the game launches, I can already get some cosmetics. I can get, membership, all those kind of things. Your character and stuff will wipe leading into the release. We think it's important for a global release of MMO to have that full wipe. However, we also have like a bunch of rewards, different like exclusive companion NFTs and stuff that you can get playing in the early access.
Okay.
Those will carry over. But your character, equipment and stuff like that will wipe for the global release.
Wait, just one thing. Did I hear right that there's going to be specific cosmetics and stuff that people will only be able to get during this early access?
Correct.
That's really awesome. We've been talking about this for months. Like, hey,
they will be early access exclusives.
Just give me exclusive things that only I will be able to get
exclusive cosmetics. Hell yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
If it's actually fun, I don't just need money.
Exactly.
I need something that makes me want to come back and play.
Yeah, if you're playing a game you enjoy, then you want a cosmetic for it, right? But if you're playing a game you don't care about, or like you're just trying to earn money from, like you're not going to buy cosmetics, right? And so again, that's a big part of what we think we're bringing to the space.
Well said, man. I'm excited. Hey, where should people go right now? They're listening to this. There's 24 hours to go until release. Where do they need to go right now to get prepped to get plugged in with you guys?
RavenQuest.com. All of our socials, our Discord, everything are there. We announce everything in the Discord or X, Twitter first. So definitely follow both of those. We also have a little reward you get for following those as well. So just RavenQuest.com, sign up for an account. You can join the Discord and Twitter from there. But we would love to have you. We'll be doing some really fun stuff. We also have we just announced our Games GG partnership today, and we have a lot of other big. We also have an Immutable Gems quest that's going to be dropping as well. And that's just like the tip of the iceberg for partnerships that we have cooking. Again, we've said many times, like we won't rest until we're the biggest game in Web3. And we're very confident that we are going to achieve that. So we'd love to have you along for the ride. Still early. We haven't pumped $100,000 into marketing and stuff like that, but we try the game and we strongly believe you'll love it.
Well said, man. I just became the 24,815th person in your Discord. So
let's go.
I am contributing
Welcome
to pumping those numbers right now.
Yes, I love it. We've grown like 1,000 Discord users in the last like 30 hours, which is insane. It's been growing very fast, and we don't expect that to slow down anytime soon. So
beautiful, awesome.
I do want to give you your kudos here.
Oh, go ahead.
Just for like 30 seconds. I do want to give you your kudos here because
I appreciate it.
There's a lot of games that I'm like, hey, I see what they're building and I'm super excited, but I also know that it's going to be 6 months to a year before I can actually experience what they're building. The fact that you're telling me, hey, if I fall in love with this game, I'm not going to have like 3 hours worth of content and then I have to stop and wait for you guys to launch. That's really exciting because I think that's what's really going to get people fall in love with these games is actual content. And so I'm super excited for that. And kudos to you guys for
you can play 16 hours a day through the whole early access. And I promise you'll just see the tip of the iceberg on what the game has to offer. And we know already when the early access goes down, people are going to be losing it, itching for more. So that's exactly what we want. So
that's awesome.
Fantastic, man. Hey, you can find all of those details in a link right here somewhere where I'm pointing. Go play RavenQuest for free. It is one of the few games that is free to play and earn. Really excited about it, man. I can't wait to try it myself. So
thanks so much, guys.
On the battlefield. We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to 100X.